So join me, Roz Atkins, for Outside Source, Monday to Thursday from 18 GMT on BBC World News.
In 2016, Roz Atkins had been working at the BBC for nearly 2 decades. He had a nightly primetime news program, had won a few awards, and was by all accounts a successful journalist. But he was noticing a problem. He wanted to ensure his journalism featured a wide array of perspectives, but he didn't have any data on the demographics of his guests. So, for 1 month, Roz and his producers collected that data themselves, tallying the genders of guests after every show. The results were striking. Only 39% of the featured guests were women. Roz and his team immediately set the goal of achieving gender balance. Soon, their approach spread to other BBC news shows and led to more equitable coverage for all genders across the network. Roz did a few key things to make his program fair for his guests and his viewers. He used data to motivate action. He set a clear goal to give women experts equal airtime. And he built a work environment where gender parity was simply the normal thing to do. These data-driven, evidence-based workplace practices are the focus of a new book by Iris Bohnet and Siri Chilazi of Harvard Kennedy School. On this episode of Behind the Book, we speak with Bohnet and Chilazi about their latest book, Make Work Fair: Data-Driven Design for Real Results. Bohnet and Chilazi have been studying how to make workplaces more equitable for years. Their book draws on research with local governments in India and multinationals in Sweden, platforms created in Australia and Colombia, including by HKS graduates Kate Glazebrook and Mia Perdomo. And it draws on case studies featuring change makers like Una King in the tech sector and John Aino in the legal sector. The two authors argue that workplace training programs around diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, haven't achieved their desired effect in producing equal opportunity to all workers.
The things that we're doing now are not working, certainly not working as well and as quickly as they should. For all the talk, the hours spent on trainings, the conversations, the public engagement, we're seeing very little real results. Part of the reason why we're a little bit stuck or not moving forward as quickly as we should be is we've been spending our time and effort doing the wrong things. While things like training programs are popular and are often considered best practice, they are not based on the best evidence of what works and what doesn't. Similarly, expecting a couple of people in a large organization of hundreds or thousands of hundreds of thousands to be able to fix fairness for everyone just doesn't happen.
Bohnet and Chilazi think one of the biggest reasons DEI trainings haven't succeeded is that they focus on changing people's beliefs rather than their behaviors.
Behavior change is important to us for at least 2 reasons. The first one is that it's in fact hard to change minds. It's hard to change these deeply held values, our beliefs, our attitudes. The second reason is that our virtuous intentions do not always translate into actions.
Instead, Bohnet and Chilazi have found that the most effective way that workplaces can make real change for their employees is through structural rather than individual change, where fairness gets baked into everything a workplace does.
So that includes how we hire, how we promote, how we do performance appraisals, but also how we organize our meetings, how inclusive our meetings are, how we organize our work.
So the core of the paradigm shift that we're proposing with this book is that organizations need to start approaching fairness exactly the same way they approach their other core priorities, with the same seriousness and using the same tools.
With all of their recommendations, Bohnet and Chilazi stress the importance of using strategies that have been carefully researched and tested.
How do we know if something actually works? This is where we turn to science, specifically randomized controlled trials that are considered to be the gold standard method of determining what the effect of an intervention is.
For example, in 2017, the New York City Fire Department was interested in attracting more women, Black, and Hispanic job applicants. Typically, FDNY candidates are asked to take a civil service exam, which has a $30 fee. So, FDNY conducted a randomized controlled trial in which some applicants had this fee waived, while others were still asked to pay it.
Removing the hurdle increased the fraction of people who applied dramatically, particularly from people who weren't traditionally in the workforce. And in this case, that was women and Black Americans.
Bohnet and Chilazi argue that removing barriers is an important driver of fairness, even long after an employee has been hired. They encourage employers to move from a focus on where and how long people work to what people actually do. This shift, according to Bohnet and Chilazi, can allow employees with disabilities, caregiving responsibilities, and even long commutes to thrive at work with no negative effects and even positive effects on their employers. For example, when the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office allowed employees to work from anywhere 4 days a week, the number of patents they examined increased by 4.4%.
Good organizational culture starts with fair processes. It includes work arrangements. Sometimes they're formal, sometimes they're informal. Sometimes people have no control over their time. They have no control over how they will work, when they will work next week. There's no flexibility in the system. So again, a big factor in how employees perceive the culture to be.
The book is Make Work Fair: Data-Driven Design for Real Results. It's written by Iris Bohnet, Albert Pratt Professor of Business and Government and co-director of the Women in Public Policy program at Harvard Kennedy School, and by Siri Chilazi, senior researcher at the Women in Public Policy program. It's published by HarperCollins. This has been Behind the Book, a production of Library and Research Services at Harvard Kennedy School. Find past and future episodes of Behind the Book by subscribing to Harvard Kennedy School on YouTube, subscribing to our newsletter, and visiting our website.